Do you know what? This could all soon be a thing of the past. The government has promised to introduce a right to switch off, so your home doesn't become an office 24/7. It's looking at systems in Ireland and Belgium, where a clear code of practice sets out expectations of normal working hours when staff can and cannot be contacted. Your takeaway would be safe. It might mean bosses who consistently contact employers out of hours would be fined thousands of pounds at tribunals. So do we need a right to switch off? Hee-Jung Chung is Professor of Work and Employment at the King's Business School in London and lives in Canterbury. Welcome to the show. Okay, I put it to you. Nice idea, but it's never going to happen. It's not practical in this day and age.
Well, I think this legislation is really important because of the example you set in terms of managers understanding that just because workers' work and home boundaries have been blurred due to home working and other types of flexible working, that means that you could just essentially work anytime and everywhere, especially I think with the rise of digital technology. You know, you carry your office around in your pocket with your phone. And I think there's just a bit of a trend that everybody is feeling the need to, or there's some sort of a social expectation that you can be connected to work all the time. And what this legislation does is two things. One is to help managers understand that that isn't really helpful, that is really not conducive for productivity. That providing workers with ample rest and ample detachment away from work is actually going to provide you with better productivity during your working hours. But just one on top of that, what we do see is that we see a culture of not just managers asking workers to kind of work on the weekends or evenings or have meetings in the early hours, etc., but more that workers are checking their emails first thing in the morning. Workers are checking their emails last thing before they go to bed or on the weekends or your holidays just tainted with just, can I just check that email? Let's just see what's happening there.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if the government is able to provide this legislation with some really good evidence and case studies, as well as a campaign to show that that is not good for productivity, that when we say you should go on holidays, that's not just for you, it's for the company, it's for society, that you getting a well-rested break is good for everyone.
It's true.
That's actually what this is about.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm just thinking, it's going to take a lot of discipline, isn't it, to delete your work emails from your phone? It's like, the genie has emerged from the bottle. It'd be hard to put it back in again.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of people get quite anxious, especially because this whole right to disconnect has been misconstrued as, then I can't check my emails in the evenings, etc. And then it does. We've already formed a habit, and that habit and culture is actually really difficult to undo if you want. But as we've seen in other countries and other company case studies, is that once we start setting a norm that we don't do this, and this is what, again, this legislation is, that we don't check our emails. We don't have to. And no one's going to see you as a slacker if you don't check your emails or don't, respond to things after hours. When that starts happening and everybody understands that it's not just themselves, but everybody else is doing it, again, due to the gentle nudge given by the government, you will see some changes.
Okay, and we know that there are similar laws or legislation, if you like, in Belgium and Ireland. Do we know if it's working over there or if it has made any difference or if it's just a nice idea?
Well, I think this is where we still need more evidence. So these kind of legislation, these are very, very new, and we're really in the baby steps. And as you know, most of the remote working has really just started after the pandemic, and we're still just finding our feet here. So, but what we do find is that there are variations across companies as well as countries. And the countries and companies where workers already had good negotiation power, good consultation relationships with employers, were the ones that these pieces of legislation had more effect. So what you need is not just a legislation that provides a framework for companies, but also employers' buy-in. I think it's really important for managers to understand this is not just a piece of red tape that they need to navigate again and trying to figure out how to undo, but more so about, providing them with an opportunity to think about, is this a good idea to have workers always on? And if so, why are we always on? This probably means some sort of bad planning, bad management decisions as well. So maybe we need to really reconsider the organization of work as a whole and try to, move forward. And this is where, and these companies are the ones where these right to disconnect, when it was jointly decided and agreed by employers and unions or worker representations, those are the companies where these policies worked and work for everybody.
It's an interesting one because, even just having the change might make an employer think twice about that phone call in the evening that we were talking about at the top of the piece. We shall see. I have to ask you, Hae-Jing, how good are you at switching off from work when you're not at work?
Well, let's just say I'm also happy that this piece of legislation is coming in, so right. I could be also a beneficiary of it.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. And it's not easy. It's a rabbit hole, isn't it? Sometimes you open your work emails and there you are, half an hour later, ignoring your family and all of that. Listen, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time on the Wake Up Call this morning. Hae-Jing Chung then, Professor of Work and Employment at the King's Business School in London, living in Canterbury and confessing she also finds it hard to switch off. How about you? And how do you think this is going to work? How do you think this is going to change things if it's legislated that you can't be contacted outside your working hours? Get in touch and